Hey everyone. Well, we're back at it again after a short little break around for Christmas, and we're going to get into a video here today for you. And this is again um, another video by request, and I find this to be a rather interesting topic to say the least. And I've had several people ask me about this one. And why do guys have such a difficult time with the twin flame connection? You know, you could probably do about why do guys have such a difficult time with the twin flame connection? You could probably do about a half a dozen videos on this, and um, they probably all have a lot of good information in them. But before I get into it, I just want to mention again to everybody, I'm not part of the spiritual community, so I don't follow all of their protocols and all that kind of stuff. And another thing that I've come to a brilliant deduction about is everyone on the planet lies, and everyone on the planet judges. They're no exception. I don't care how spiritually evolved you think you are, you're no different than anybody else. Somewhere, sometime, somehow, someday, someplace, you're going to lie, you're going to judge. We all do it. Okay? So that clears that up. And I don't follow the rest of the other silly bullshit that they do with the spiritual community also. So having said that, now I can speak freely. Okay. One of the things that I have noticed over the years is I have acquired a lot of knowledge on the experience of the twin flame connection from both sides of the perspective. From the men's point of view, but even more so from the ladies' point of view. And one of the things that I have found, besides the fact that men do go through a heart center awakening, and they do go through in the twin flame connection a phase, if you will, where they go between head and heart. And that's wonderful to be able to come to that conclusion that this is what they're doing. But why are they going through that phase of going from head to heart and back and forth and up and down? They can't make up their mind. Let me put it in these terms, and I'm going to be very blunt. Some years ago, and this would be 30 years ago or more, there was a major shift in the legal system, especially here in Canada. I do believe in the US also, and in some of the European countries, where at one time, the dissolution of a marriage or divorce in a marriage definitely favored the male, and we had a lot of males getting away with not being supportive and taking responsibility for their families and their children, etc., etc., etc. And then a shift took place about 30 years ago where it went in the other direction, where now the law favors, here in Canada, and I believe also in the States, more or less, the females when it comes to divorce and breaking up of property and all that kind of stuff, in financial security and payments made, alimony for the children, for the wife, etc., etc., etc. That is, of course, unless there is a prenuptial agreement beforehand, which in most cases I don't think there is. So, having said that, let's break this down a little bit, even a little bit more. Let's suppose that we have a lady, and the lady is in a relationship that has been basically falling apart for a period of time. And we connect and have a twin flame connection with a male who is also in a relationship, and that relationship is falling apart and it's not been going well. I'll get to the ones that are having a good relationship in a minute. I'll cover all the bases here. So what happens? They have this wonderful, blissful connection going on. And a lot of things are realized between the two of them during the course of the bubble up phase. and they feel very happily, they're fulfilled, they fill each other's supposed needs as they see it. And what happens is they talk about getting into a relationship, or at least that would seem to be, without insulting females, that would seem to be the priority in the general terms. In general terms, I didn't say with everyone, I said general terms here, a priority that has been deeply ingrained in the female consciousness of let's get him into a relationship. If it's a twin flame, definitely get him into a relationship, and as soon as possible. So now what happens, you have a phenomena take place that I see all of the time, and this is first of all from the feminine aspect. Ladies don't like to get involved in any kind of a situation of breaking up their marriage or letting go of the situation unless they have a plan B. I've noticed this as a pattern in general terms, not everyone, in general terms. There are a lot of ladies in redundant relationships. They get the twin flame connection, and now they're convinced that they want to get out of it, their relationship, because now they have a plan B. They have their twin flame has shown up. All right, I get it. And the guy, on the other hand, or it could be another female, whatever your preference is, doesn't matter really. Same things apply. The guy, on the other hand, he's in a marriage. There are children involved, and he is in a situation where there is no prenup agreement. And let's be bare bones candid here, and let's leave out all the fluff and the fantasy and the bullshit that's going up on either side of me up in here on YouTube, and let's get serious here for a change. And let's really talk about why the guys are not coming forth in these twin flame connection. And it's wonderful and it's blissful, and he goes into a heart center awakening. He has a Kundalini awakening, and he has got the worst case of hots for this woman that you ever could possibly imagine. And then suddenly he starts to run. And he's on again, he's off again, he's on again, he's off again, he's on again, he's off again. First of all, that's a pattern. But the reason it's happening is, one, because the woman allows it. Because I'll tell you something about the runner in the chaser stage, okay? When you have, especially a male who's doing the running, and this is what I found common in every situation. Whenever I've talked to a lady and I said to her, well, why is this running situation continuing? I said, I would say to them, all you have to do is say, that's it. You're not going to do this pattern anymore because it's looking like you're just coming around for sex whenever you feel like it and hang about for a bit, and then you go back to your partner or your situation. And I found out that the big thing is they would say to me, well, I'm afraid of losing him. Well, I said, and enjoy the pattern. It's going to continue. In some cases, you have to understand in a situation, and as much as I hate to admit this, women are much further down the road in spiritual evolution when it comes to these twin flame connections. And it's the bare bones fact. Men are not at the same level yet. They're not. So what happens is the women find themselves in a state of being the leaders in the situation, and what do? They fall back on the old traditional of this is how you deal with a relationship, blah, 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 based on their previous experience. And what happens is with the guy, on the other hand, he takes a look at this situation and he's saying to himself, wow, I'm really into this connection. And wow, I got 3 kids and I got a business going, or I got a job going here, and I got responsibilities, and I know now that the law favors the situation in regards to the woman, and it's the bare bones fact, it's the truth. They don't want to do it. They don't want to make the commitment. All right? They will continue with the pattern as it is and as it was indefinitely, as long as someone, be it whoever it is, the male or the female, will allow the pattern to continue. What happens is should the male or the female, whoever the situation is, decides to put their foot down and say, that's it, no more, we're not doing this anymore, then what happens is if you want to come and see me or you want to connect with me, there's no sex involved. Try that, see what happens. I'll bet you get a big surprise real quick. You'll find out just how serious you are about the situation, and you will definitely find out how serious he is about the situation, and you'll definitely find out how much you're suffering from fear of loss of love. One thing that I'm going to emphasize in this video, there is no place in a twin flame connection for fear of loss of love, either with the male or the female. When you see that situation coming up, you've set up this repetitious bullshit pattern that goes on between a set of twin flames that shows the lack of maturity in regards to their situation. Yes, I know it's painful. Yes, I know you have all of these heart-throbbing thoughts and feelings and emotions and everything else about your twin flame. But it's not a one-size-fits-all. It's not. The old days of people now accepting this idea that you can only have one twin flame connection and that's it is nothing but a crock of shit, and it's already been proven to be untrue, that the evolutionary process has evolved and it's moving on, that you can have this connection with several people, and you can even be in a twin flame connection and actually have another twin flame connection with another person. The issue here is this is the label in all its forms and all of its levels of expression is redundant. It's the process that everybody needs to understand, all right? If you don't have any knowledge of the process and you're one of those fluffy, romantic people, you say, oh, well, I'm just going to leave it all to my angels, and I'll leave it all to my guides, and I'll leave it all to my higher self, and everything will just be wonderful. Well, happy days and happy trails, because you're in for a big surprise. So when you have a guy in this particular situation, what do you think he's going to do? He's going to do what they've been doing for the last 30 years. Guys don't want to make commitments in relationships anymore. It doesn't matter how unique or special they are, for those obvious reasons. And it's the same thing, and I've seen this too, even with people who are single, all right? And they don't want to make the commitment. Guys are not getting into these relationships anymore because they now know, because they've heard stories or they've heard other men talking about what happens. It's very, very easy to get into a marriage or a relationship. It costs you maybe a few $100 or a few $1,000s, whatever. It can cost you the rest of your life in obligation in regards to a relationship that's devolving and going through divorce by definition in a way that it's manifested now. And the reason that I know this is I had a lady friend that I was dating at one particular point, and this was way back in about 25 years ago, all right, at least that long. And she was getting a divorce from her husband, and she had to go to a lawyer. She said, "You want to come with me just for the ride?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, okay." So I went, and the lawyer called her in, and I was sitting in the office just going to wait for her. She says, "No, come on in with me." I said, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, okay." So I went in. I'm sitting there and keeping my mouth shut, and I'm listening to what's going on. And the lawyer said to her, "So, okay, well, you know right off the bat you're going to get half, right?" She said, "Yep, that's all I want is just half." He said, "Whoa, wait a minute. After you get half, we can go back and get half of his half." And I looked, and right away I realized that if this is how easy, okay, a solicitor can talk about it, then I realized that I'd better take a look at the system myself, and I did take a look at the system myself. And I started to realize that when getting into any kind of a relationship with anybody, you better be very careful. Nowadays, what I see happening is you have a lot of people who get out of marriages or relationship, and they don't even bother getting a divorce or whatever, or they get a divorce, and what happens is they get into what's called a common law relationship with somebody under whatever circumstances or whatever. Well, you could be in a situation where you're already paying support for one marriage that didn't work, and you get involved with a person or persons in regards to a live-in or a common law relationship, and you could end up, if that one falls apart, in the same boat paying support in that particular one also. I actually met a guy one time who said, you wouldn't believe this. He said, my ex-wife now has been married twice besides me. She's never worked a day in her life. And I'm not picking on women here. I'm just using an example of why guys are scared shitless to get into these types of relationships. Okay. And she's getting support from three ex-husbands. Never worked a day in her life. Got it made. Hey, nice work if you can get it. Smart lady, I'd say. Anyways, so this is why, especially now, what's happening is the twin flame connection, as it's happening, is for a lot of these people who are in these types of connection for no other purpose than to start breaking down their old patterns and old belief systems and behaviors, if we can put it that way, in regards to connecting. There's nothing in a twin flame connection that if the people are already in a relationship that says you have to get together just because it's a twin flame connection. In most cases, what I've found is if the person, be it the male or the female, is progressing along in some fashion that is amenable and there is growth, there is change, there is dissolution of old belief systems and ideologies and philosophy, the relationship that they're in will already, on its own, kind of guided by higher self, if you will, and the circumstances around it, but more by frequencies. Here's what happens, so right in a twin flame connection. When you have two people that come together in a twin flame connection, the male, female, as the usual, that's what I'm talking about. It can be same-sex situation also. But what happens is you have the dynamics of the energy connection between the two of them, and they create what I call the third energy. I coined that phrase some years ago, and it's still being used a lot, and I'm good with that. And what happens is when you do it, you have that energetic connection. So what happens, it starts to filter through the emotional body, the mental body, the chakra system of the individual. And it starts literally breaking down old patterns, old belief systems, because we're going through a process of evolution. Everyone that's out there that listens to this video needs to understand and get this into your heads that the twin flame connection is all about the evolution of you at the emotional, the mental, the etheric, and even at the physical level of change within you. So that entails a change in your consciousness. So even if you don't get together for whatever reason, for the male who backs away, runs away, whatever. And the other thing that I forgot to mention about men is the other thing that I've found is the sense, and I talked to a few of them and I've asked them, I said, well, okay, what is the major thing that's holding you back, besides I get the point of, you're in a relationship or you're not in a relationship and you're giving me all the reasons why you can't commit, you won't commit, you don't want to commit. And the other reason that I found that comes into play also is religious indoctrination. There are some religions on the planet who impress, if that's the nicest word I can use, impress upon their people that if you are married, you have the responsibility of remaining in that marriage. Doesn't matter if you're unhappy for the rest of your friggin' life, you stay in it, in that particular situation, and you have the responsibility for it. Another thing that comes up, and this is a big one that I found to be with a lot of people, especially men, all right? The sense of loss of control and power in their life is probably the most intimidating thing to a male about the twin flame connection, bar none. Ladies seem to handle this much better than men do, but the guys that I've talked to, and I've talked to lots of them, they say to me, Mel, you have no idea how overwhelming that this experience can be when you just feel this energetic pull, this vibratory sense of loss of self, loss of identity, loss of control, loss of power. It makes you feel like you're nothing and everything all at the same time. And the tendency for all of them to say to me, I just wanted to run away. I was scared shitless of the connection. And then what happened? they would tell me that they get back into this running back and forth pattern in between. They would go for a while, and then they'd, go and, do their thing with their twin flame connection. And I found that as a general rule, most of them are nice guys. There wasn't any assholes in the crew that I talked to, and I talked to quite a few of them. And they all said it's just so overwhelming because it's something that they've never experienced before to that intensity. And on top of that, they usually had a really, really profound Kundalini awakening and also a very activated heart center chakra opening. And it was very, very difficult for them. So everyone needs to understand something here. And it's this. The twin flame connection is a process of evolution of relationships. I'm going to repeat that. The twin flame connection is the process of the evolution of relationships. But that doesn't mean initially when you have one, it's going to evolve into a relationship with that particular person. A lot of mysticism, a lot of illusions, and a lot of belief systems have been built around the twin flame connection. You can find them on either side of me here on YouTube, which is nothing but pure and simple bullshit coming from people who have half-assed experience and others who are just doing marketing and programming and just doing a lot of stuff and sticking into a segment of the process and getting hold of a lot of gullible people and taking advantage of them. So when this process takes place for two individuals, all of the impediments, the blockages, and what is taking place in regards to their personality traits, habits that need to come into balance. All right, let me make this statement, and a lot of people are going to take this the wrong way. When I was in my 20s and 30s, you had to look long and hard, as it were, in your friends and associates to find a very dysfunctional family. Okay, that means they're screwed up. And they have kids that are dysfunctional, all right? Nowadays, dysfunctional relationships and dysfunctional families are considered the norm. That's scary. What is our society going to be like in 3 or 4 generations if that pattern continues? So this is why we're having the twin flame connection. It's the process of evolution of relationships, but also the process of changing the consciousness of the two individuals, which brings me back to the guys again. And I've told this to a lot of ladies, all right, that when they're in this back and forth pattern with the guy or the girl, whatever it may be, stop it. Don't do that anymore. Say to the person, that's it. We're not doing this back and forth regime all the time. I'm putting a stop to it now. If you want to come and see me, you come and see me, but there's no sex. That'll change the whole continuity of it right off the bat, all right? Because I'll tell you another part that has come and been made to me that's become a little exciting to tell you about. There are some guys out there, all right, in the spiritual community who have caught on to this scenario of the twin flame connection. And I can recall a couple of years ago, all right, where I heard a couple of stories or rumors, if you want to call them that, from reliable sources, where there were guys who were going around and they were getting and feeling these connections with ladies, and they knew what it was all about, but the ladies didn't, and they were taking advantage of the situation. Now, I would imagine this is happening on both sides of the fence, and it's still happening now, but now we're having connections with other people. A lot of people in the spiritual community who are having heart center connections, very deep, profound heart center connections with other people. And they're not defining it as a relationship or a twin flame connection. They're not doing that anymore. So that kind of ended that particular situation. But the bottom line of the situation here is this: is the guys fear the loss of power, the loss of control, and the loss of identity. That's what it feels like. And how do I know this? Do I sit here because I don't know what I'm talking about? If there's one person up on YouTube who does know what they're talking about, I'm it. I know because I went through it. All right? I know what it feels like. It's a very helpless feeling. And guys, don't, as a general rule, clamor together and get together and talk about these things. Maybe that would be a good idea to start some men's groups. Maybe that's a good idea. Why don't some men out there get together and start only a twin flame group for men? Might be a good idea. Because I noticed another thing, when you get up on Facebook, you go into these groups, here's another problem. How are you going to get men actively involved when you got 98% of the people in these Facebook groups are all women, and 75% of them are doing nothing but bitching and whining and complaining about what their twin flame is not doing? I mean, what else the hell is there to say? So is it any wonder these guys keep running? All right. So when a guy is feeling like this, and I'm not sticking up for guys here, all right? What I'm saying here is women have the advantage, they are ahead. We know that. The guys, fear of loss of power, control, identity, and they don't want to make a commitment. Nowadays, it's very, very tricky, very, very difficult to get men to make a commitment to any kind of relationship for the obvious reason. And that pattern is going to continue. It's going to continue until the consciousness of both of the people have changed and evolved to a certain degree. One of the things that I've noticed also is this, okay, and I'm not, and again here, the idea here of, of going into a group and especially in a twin flame group and going in there and criticizing and judging and ridiculing in some places and calling them all kinds of names and whatever everything else is not going to accomplish anything. Because what I found is a general rule, even though the guys are, doing this running thing, and even though they can't make the commitment, they don't want to make the commitment because of all of the issues and stuff that's going on, I find that the street is even on either side. When you have a problem with one, you have just as much of a problem with the other, but it may not be as obvious in this particular situation. So the idea with this is if we're going to change this, and actually start evening it out so that the men can actually rise up a little bit to kind of meet the ladies are going to have to kind of change their vibration, change the way they talk about it, and change the way that they address in regards to the energy. Can you imagine you have met your twin flame and both of you are in a relationship already, and you're coming together and you've created that third energy, which is that very powerful stream of consciousness of energy, which is potentially very creative. And then you get together and your twin flame screws it up, or you screw it up. And it doesn't matter who. And you part again. But you've already created that creative energy. And then when your twin flame is not in your company or in your presence, you're sitting there and you're fuming. You're pissed off with him or her. And you're fuming about it and you're thinking about it, and this no good, this and that no good, that kind of thing. And what the hell is he doing? And blah, 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 and all of that negative thinking. What you're doing is you're just creating a bigger problem yet. You have to stop thinking in terms of the old ways of defining a relationship. They will not work in the dynamics of the twin flame connection. The evolutionary process is continuing, and the evolutionary process can go in reverse as much as it can go forward, depending upon the thoughts and what the person is talking about at that particular point in time. And whenever I'm working with a person, I will only make suggestions as what they do. One of the things that I've noticed, and I have to say this, in this video, it's really kind of neat. I have seen myself talking to a lady or a gentleman in a counseling session, and they will express their point of view or their expression as to what's going on, and I will offer a solution. And they totally agree. Yep, that's the solution to the problem. And then we continue with the conversation, and they go right back to the old pattern of actually talking about what their twin flame's not doing, or what he's doing, or what she's not doing, or what he's not doing, back and forth. I'm saying, what the hell is going on here? And then I realized how deeply programmed we are in certain aspects of relationships. And the situation now is the guys, like beside the fear, loss of power, identity, and complete overwhelmed with the feeling that is in the connection of the twin flame connection, the commitment aspect, and also the heart center activation, which I want to touch on for just a minute here. Oh, we're at 30 minutes. I'm going to stop here in a couple of minutes. The heart center connection is a piece also that is very important. So when you have twin flames, especially, and I'm talking about guys who are in between head and heart, all right, what happens is when they're getting into their head, they're back in the mental body. The mental body contains all of those residual patterns that I've been talking about, okay, with variations, okay? I'm not talking like I'm in stone here. Everybody's different, all right, and everybody's unique. But what I'm doing is I'm talking in general terms here so nobody gets their shorts all in a knot, all right, or their nose out of joint. So what happens here is when you're going through this for a guy, you'll go back and forth. You feel that wonderful in the heart kind of thing. And then you go back into your head and you try to get into the mental body. And what you try to do is you try to think your way through the process. And you come up with all of those things that I've previously mentioned as reasons therefore. So you negate or you cancel all of the positivity that came out of it. And this can go on in a guy for an extended period of time. Remember something. Our society has produced males in a way to be dominant, all right? And it's not our fault. That's just the way it is, all right? No man or no male came into this world being dominant and wanting to be possessive or narcissist or any of those things. Those things all came out of dysfunctional families in the first place, which was what I was talking about, all right? So these things have to be broken down. Our society cannot continue the way it's going, or we're not going to survive as a species. It's that simple. I don't care what a lot of people say. Oh, everybody's going to be saved. Everybody's going to be lifted up in the clouds, and the Lord's going to come forth and save us all. Well, that's a big pile of horse shit. You're going to save anybody, you're going to save yourself first of all, and get yourself in balance in these types of situations. So this is what's going on between the head and the heart thing at this particular point in time. And it's very important to remember that when you're in a twin flame connection, it is crucial that you respect, yes, I said respect, the connection. It doesn't mean you have to have total respect for the person involved, but you have respect for the connection and what it potentially means. Because it's a gift. It's a gift. Some of you call it a curse, and as long as you call it a curse, that's what it's going to be because you just created it. If you call it a pain in the ass and you never want to see your twin flame again, that's what it's going to be, a pain in the ass, and you're never going to see your twin flame again. You have to remember, with an active heart center chakra that is evolving and growing, be careful what you say, especially when you're in a twin flame connection. I'm going to caution people about this from now on. Your words have power, especially when you're in a twin flame connection. You've got to respect that gift. You've got to respect that power. And you've got to learn to take responsibility and come out of the diaper age in relationships. Because we've been living in this emotional diaper age of relationships for so long, our society is becoming, the norm is now dysfunctional, which won't do. It really won't do. So we need more effort, more respect for that connection as being an evolutionary process in each individual, the male and the female. And take it from there. And of course, if you need some assistance along your journey, you know where to find me. It's all there on our page and on our website. Take care, everybody. There'll be more videos coming along here very shortly.